Welcome everybody. My name's Maralee Burnett. I am your astrologer, back again with the messages for the week of April 20th. If you're feeling like things have been moving extremely quickly, you are not alone, and that has a lot to do with how many planets we have sitting in the sign of Aries right now. Plus, it's a fire horse year. Unheard of 7 planets in Aries as we had the new moon last week. So things are charged up. Things are encouraging us, motivating us to get going in some area of our life. We're no longer comfortable with sitting still or sitting back. But the good news is, as we look at this week ahead, we're going to be focusing in on the things that are changing. When the sun leaves the sign of Aries, we've completed stage 1. Think about all of the 12 houses, and Aries is where we begin, where we decide who I am. Well, then when the sun moves into the second house, now that you know who you are, what are you going to do about it? What are you going to align with? What things are going to create value for you in your life? And how will you create money, for instance? So we're probably going to be focused a lot more on the financial picture over the next month. Of course, if all of that sounds interesting to you, you may want to consider clicking on that subscribe button down below. That way you get notifications every time I post new content, which, by the way, is daily, because I use the tarot cards to post a daily message. And those messages include a little sprinkling in of astrology knowledge as well. And lately, I've been asking my followers for questions that I can ask the cards and then share with the general public. No personal information shared, of course, but it's kind of a fun way to get a little bit more interactive and mix things up in my daily cards. So if you're not following me, start, and make sure you join me on all of the other platforms. That's where I post those daily messages, and here, of course, on YouTube as well. But you can leave me a message on any of those other platforms, and I will randomly pick one that's asked me a question and use it to post a message for the week ahead. So do it. No, I'm not going to spam you, not going to come after you for readings or ask anything like that. It's just to make it more fun and more engaging. That's it. Very simple. All right. So this week, there's not, how do we say this, but there's not a lot of things going on. There is movement, there is change, there is collaboration. And so we will break it all down here. But before we do that, make sure you also go out to my website, maraleeburnett.com, of course. Link is down below. There you get access to all of my written content. So if you want to start preparing for May, because literally it's just around the corner already, then you can go out there and read the article that's already there for you for May. And the new moon and full moon articles are written out there as well. So you get the monthly horoscope that has a breakdown for your sun sign about what you might expect in the month ahead, or your rising sign or your moon sign. Just pick the house that's going to be highlighted in the month ahead, and then you can create your own personal message. So lots of content out there. You do join my website, then you have access to all the free tools. And again, I'm not out there spamming you and sending you 10,000 emails. I just email you when things are going on, which, okay, yeah, there's a lot of things going on, but typically not so much that you would be annoyed by it. So just something to consider if you want to have a real well-rounded picture of what's going on energetically because of all the shifts and changes. And there's a lot still coming. So you definitely want to tune in and be prepared. So with that, let us get back here to Monday, April 20th. Yes, that means it's 420 day for those who participate. I hope you have an enjoyable day. But as I mentioned earlier today, what we're seeing there's a couple things going on this week that we'll start to look at here on Monday, and then we'll see what the outcome is as a result of that. So let's start with the sun. So the sun's in Taurus now. As it leaves the fiery sign of Aries, and the sun, of course, is our spotlight on ourselves. And as it moves off of literally ourselves and onto our outer experiences, this is where we can start to kind of dig in, slow down, do some deeper spotlight work as far as our money making skills go. So this could be a time where in your career, for instance, you are going to spend the next 4 weeks really focusing in on what it is that you want from the work that you do. Is it paying you enough? Do you feel valued? Are you shining enough? Are you hiding behind somebody else's success at work? All kinds of things to consider over the next 4 weeks. And because Taurus is slow and steady and stubborn, this is a time where you can really slow down. And I think energetically we start to feel the slowdown happen as well, which I think is a bit of a needed break. Keep in mind, however, we still, for the next several weeks, have Mercury and Mars moving through the sign of Aries. So it's not like things will completely come to a standstill, but there'll be better balance between needing and feeling urges to move and go, and then the sun slowing us down, helping us enjoy the experience more. The potential when you have all that fire energy is you're blasting off so fast, so far ahead that you don't take the time to appreciate the richness of your life. And that's what we'll be doing instead. So speaking of, as we look back here to Mercury and Mars, exactly at 8 degrees on Monday, that is a time that can be explosive. It can be a time where we want to be extremely careful with travel or flying because of the fact that this is where accidents can easily occur because of the fact that we're so encouraged to move, to rush, that we make careless mistakes or we make poor choices. So especially if you have this happening in your third house or maybe interacting with the ruler of your third house, you just need to be extra careful, even in the weekend ahead of this exact conjunction on Monday. Just be cautious when you're traveling. Also be cautious with your mouth. This is not the time to spout things off, or you could be retaliated against. There can be retaliations. There can be a war of words going on. So let's just say Monday, it's looking a little spicy. And the past has a lot to do with whatever's going on for you on Monday, because this South Node in Virgo right now is making this odd angle in conjunct or quincunx back to, of course, that Saturn in Aries and Mars and Mercury. So the past has something to do with what you are doing at this time. Your karma has something to do with where you're trying to go. So if you're trying to head somewhere new, or you're trying to rush off in a new direction, or you're trying to stick up for yourself, or there's something about your behavior in the past, could be your mindset even, that you have to deal with before you can move on, before you can move forward. There's something that's still a toxic part of your life that you have to finish releasing. You have to finish letting go. Remember, this is the work of the South Node in Virgo, letting go of the need for perfectionism, letting go of the need for controlling all of the outcomes. These are all things that we've been working on over the past year plus, and we have between now and July when these nodes will finally shift. So that North Node in Pisces, that's been helping us dissolve the things that are making us weak, dissolving the things that keep us from having faith, keep us from using and sharing our gifts with the world. And it is what has brought us a very vocal Pope in this current term. So we continue to have lessons here. And anytime the South Node is activated, of course, the North Node is as well. But we call this a semi-sextile. So the North Node, where we're headed, remembering the feelings of other people instead of just trampling all over them. There's something about that kind of a storyline that's been unfolding for us even as we went through the end of last week, but it's starting to reach a peak, and Saturn's there, the taskmaster, trying to give you a way forward. Show up with the rules you need to follow, what you need to do for yourself so that the incidences or the mistakes of the past don't continue forward. So there's action that you need to take. You might actually even see what's possible and want to rush forward and just go there. But there's still work to do. There's still healing, releasing to do. So Saturn's here where it's been since the weekend, holding the reins of Mars and Mercury so they don't take off too quickly, even though they've both now passed by Saturn. Saturn's rings are like a lasso, and it is going to keep containing the Mercury and the Mars energy, which makes it hard when we rush specifically to get things done or accomplished. It makes it harder to, make a video recording because you're trying to maybe rush and Saturn's trying to slow you down. Same thing with travel. So even connecting your mouth and your brain is more difficult when Saturn has this huge weight on top of both, making those connections more difficult. So again, throughout the weekend prior to this Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday, the whole week long, find a pace that is acceptable. And when you have those moments where you feel really energized, take advantage of them, get your things done, and then allow yourself to slow down and rest again. There has to be a good balance between taking action and sitting back. Brake and gas, brake and gas. You can't do both at the same time. Doesn't work. Ruins your car. And then the other thing that we're watching all week long is Uranus in Taurus. So to help you with this, and I will send it out to those of you who are subscribers, I've put a pretty detailed article together about what we can expect when Uranus moves back into the sign of Gemini, which it will do on the 25th. Now, we had an introduction last July through November. Part of that was retrograde, though, so we really didn't get a good feeling for what this is going to mean for us. But before we even get to that, these are the last few days of our experience with Uranus in the sign of Taurus that began for us back in 2018. So there's an area of your life that's been going through sudden changes. There have been dramatic swings. You may have been wanting to break free completely from something that felt like it was keeping you stuck or trapped. And you would have done this maybe several times until you figured out what was the right amount of freedom and belonging. Like that's the crux of the energy. It's Aquarius energy, right? It's like, I want to be my own unique self, but I still want to belong. And that's a challenge. How do we do that? And that belonging this time around had to do with the topics of love and beauty and money. And so we're about to see all of that change. And as we move into the sign of Gemini, it's about air, communication, information, transportation, AI, the internet, the two sides of things, the black and white, the light, the dark. And how do we escape one and enjoy the other, and vice versa? What is it that you're going to have to decide for yourself over these next 8 years? So we'll have Uranus energy in the sign of Gemini, so a fellow air sign. It rules Aquarius. It feels a little bit more comfortable in this energy because at least the air element is the same. And as mentioned, Aquarius is unique and eclectic energy. Gemini, on the other hand, likes to be the life of the party. So they want to be interacted with, and they really want to be interacted with as far as communication goes. Now, historically, we saw 84 years ago, right? We're talking about World War II, a lot of changes in communication that were created because of wartime efforts. And so we will see that area of communication and transportation change because of AI, because of need. So freedom of the press, the current regimes out there that try to suppress the voice of the people, just make it so other ways of communicating are created. So we're starting to see less and less people turn into the news station, and more people turn into individuals who are delivering news in unique and different ways. And that was because of what we got a brief preview of last year. And this year, that will be an area that expands and grows. So lots of things coming and changing, and we'll notice that on Thursday of this week. But for the next few days, we're finishing the work of 2018. What is left that you now value more than anything because of the experience that you went through? What did you decide mattered most to you? What have you allowed yourself to indulge in and enjoy? What have you decided that you want from love or are willing to give for love? All the things. So whatever it is, it's of course been a very unique journey for you. The 29 degrees, especially when we get to the 29:59 that we will right before the shifts happen, is a test. Like, are you going to pass the test? Are you going to take the learnings with you instead of the lessons so that you can apply them in a new way, in a new area of your life going forward? And remember, the element here of air and lightning means the skies are likely to be pretty electric. Uranus is a ruler of the sky. A lot of people like to think of that as alien encounters. So we shall see if those pick up in conversation and topics. Unidentified flying objects could become more visible and more active because of this energy. Definitely things flying through the sky. If we think about World War II or the Civil War, both times where we had Uranus in the sign of Gemini, there was a lot of weird, strange things flying through the sky at that time as well. Doesn't mean that we are doomed to have to repeat warlike efforts. We're already doing that, but it will change. And you're already seeing how war efforts are changing just through the use of AI videos and what we have seen out of Iran as part of their war effort, trying to communicate with the American people through their videos. Whatever you think about the whole process, all I'm saying is it's intriguing to see how war changes as we progress, supposedly as a society, and we're going to see a lot more of the use of AI as a tool in these battles that we are fighting with one another, so that somebody out there can be the supreme leader with all of the power. However, we still have Pluto in Aquarius, so that battle is not yet won, and it will be later as Uranus moves into the sign of Gemini and speaks again in harmony with Pluto. where things start to change in society as a whole. So finish up the work. I know I went really long on Monday, but there was a lot for us to unpack as we begin this important week ahead. So, if you're needing to relax a little bit, that's why it's 420 day. All right, let's move ahead. The next couple of days, literally the only new energy that is going to affect what's going on is, of course, going to be the movement of the moon. So on Tuesday, as it moves into its home sign, and it will be here for the next several days, it squares to these energies, as we've been talking about here in Aries. And that gives us something to consider, something to pause and tune into our intuition and recognize maybe we're responding emotionally in a way that's not helpful to these goals that we have for ourselves and how we're feeling. If we're acting like a baby or if we're acting like a victim, we want to be taken care of. Well, being taken care of is Cancer energy. Taking care of yourself is Aries energy. And so you can see how that doesn't work. There's a conflicting energy going on when these two are interacting. And so, as usual, if you've been following me, I'll tell you, here's a square. We have a choice to make, a change to make, something to soften the edges that are created by a square. So there has to be a balance between taking care of yourself and having other people take care of you. It can't be all or nothing here. There's something we're figuring out that we need to change on Tuesday as a result of this discomfort that we'll be experiencing. And then we're going to just blast ahead, move on into Wednesday, and notice here as the moon in Cancer meets up with Jupiter, who's starting to finally really make some headway here. Keep in mind, Jupiter will be here through July, and then it too will transition into the sign of Leo, while the South Node also moves into the sign of Leo. They just happen to be at different places in the sign, but they're both going to be helping us do the work. So anytime the moon passes in front of Jupiter is a really good time to pay attention to however you're being called to care and nurture yourself, care and nurture for other people. Pay attention to your feelings, your emotions, your intuition, because Jupiter expands on whatever it touches. And this also could be a day where the volume of emotions or the volume of water gets turned up and is much more intense. So if you are affected by these energies in a way that makes you uncomfortable, then these are good days for you to remember, how do I care for myself when I'm feeling emotional unrest, so that you don't end up lashing out or taking out your discomfort on other people. And other people can be what makes you feel uncomfortable on a day like today because they're feeling it too much. And if you're an empath like me, then suddenly everybody's emotions can be overwhelming to you. So remember to shield, remember to ground, remember to recognize this is not my energy, and I release it and I send it back to you with love, right? It's not that I'm sending it back because I can't deal with it, but I love it for a moment and then I send it back to you. And as it returns to you, it changes. And then that can be helpful to the person without you owning their healing journey or making them feel better. You have to learn to let other people manage their emotions. So that may be a lesson for us here on what will be Earth Day. So again, there may be big messages about caring and nurturing not just ourselves, but of course the earth and what can we do. Everybody who plays a small part makes a huge difference. So do something that cares for the earth today. Like use less energy, don't drive to work, do something to give back. And then we will head on into Thursday. And this is going to be that perspective that we get from Venus, the ruler of Taurus, meeting with Uranus in Taurus. So in my write-up, I actually include a little history. Well, not really history. It's mythology about how Venus is created and what role Uranus has to play in Venus's creation. And so it's kind of a fun little story. So you should definitely check out that article. And there can be storylines today having to do with, fathers and daughters because of this connection between Venus and Uranus. It can, of course, highlight love, beauty, money, a test of some kind in those areas that we are experiencing. And keep in mind, as Venus finishes her time here, she's wrapping up work that you've been doing with her over the past 3 weeks. So there could be like a grand finale of some kind that surprises or shocks us. It doesn't have to be a bad surprise. It can be a good, happy surprise as well. But just expect the unexpected today, and you'll be able to move through this energy a little more smoothly than overreacting, because the thing about 29 degrees of Taurus is we can overreact. Now, there could be a big test in the stock market today. There could be tests of, financial contracts, peace deals, all the things could come up to shake us up a little bit today. And it also is a time for the earth to shake or be disrupted in some way. And in those moments of panic, and you look around you and say, what would I take with me if I had to suddenly leave my home? Those are the conversations, those are the thought processes that will occur throughout the day today as a result of the two of these energies coming together. Now, can bring innovation as far as money and beauty. So if you're going to do a beauty treatment, I would explore it today. I wouldn't necessarily get anything done today because I couldn't guarantee how it's going to turn out because of the fact that Uranus is here. I would wait for any beauty treatments until next week, once Uranus starts settling into the sign of Gemini, is clear of its Taurus energy. All right, then we are going to move ahead to Friday, and this will be the last day, like I said, of Uranus in Taurus. We've already talked about all of that. And then this is the beginning of Venus in Gemini. So now we're getting the preview of the work that you'll do with Venus here over the next 3 weeks and with Uranus here till 2033. So pay attention to these days. Take note or make note of things that seem strange or unusual. You maybe wouldn't normally take as much time with whatever it is. But because this is the 0 degree, this is a reset moment. This is when everything is brand new and anything is possible. That's what we get from Venus in the sign of Gemini. So if anything is possible today, what would you do? Would you learn something new? Would you reach out to somebody? Would you express your feelings to them as a result of this energy? Maybe you're going to be inspired to write music or write a love story or write that book you've been talking about. Maybe you want to teach others. Lots of possibilities. So like I said, pay close attention to what is presenting itself as possible and what is presenting itself as being ready to come to a close. This chapter is ready to end, and you want to be the one that stays in charge of closing the door and inviting in the new today. And then following in Venus's footsteps will be Uranus throughout the day on Saturday. And so I am just going to pop it ahead here so you can physically see on Saturday around 6:45-ish in the evening is when we will get this big breath of fresh air, right? Because air is Gemini as well. It's also a time for, working with the hands. Whenever I see people with dominant Gemini energy, I usually see that they work with their hand or they work with their mind. Of course, they're working with their mouth and communicating, but it's the AI and the computer programming that, really stands out. And so there will be tremendous advances between now and, of course, 2033 as a result of this energy. And anytime Uranus goes through Gemini, there is great advancements as far as communication goes, as far as transportation goes, and even manual labor. If you think about the women that went to work in the factories because the men were off at war. So we're already hearing talks of more emphasis being on the draft. Well, if all of these people, men, were drafted, women would have to step up and fill in the gaps. Not saying that that is going to necessarily come to be, but there is definitely change coming in the labor markets as a result of advancements in AI as well. I don't think it's something to be afraid of. I think it's something to be aware of so that you know how to work with what's possible going forward. And then today, on top of that reset, the moon goes into 0 degrees of Virgo at the same time and squares with Uranus. So this need for control and this need for freedom are in conflict today. So as this energy transitions, as these big changes begin to unfold, there's some unsettling energy, which is very normal and should be expected. So you should expect the unexpected as we see this transition happen. There can be conflicts because also that sun in Taurus now is squaring to Pluto in the sign of Aquarius. So this can be financial conflicts. There can be ground troop movements, for instance, when the sun's in Taurus, the ground, versus Pluto in Aquarius, the air. Also, Pluto in Aquarius is the water, right? Aquarius is the water maiden. She is bringing water to the people, serving the people in some way. So there is a servant to the people that's in conflict with a leader who is focused on money and power. So even though it's the weekend, there's going to be a lot of volatility. And of course, we'll see this the few days before, the few days after, but it will likely be the most intense here as we get into Saturday. And adding to that is this conflicting energy between Mercury and Jupiter. So if it was me, next Saturday, I wouldn't plan anything that is like fixed, I have to do it this day type of events. I would keep my plans very fluid. I would potentially just stay home and work around the house, controlling myself and my energy and my environment, because out and about, it can feel a little uncomfortable when there's so much energy that's in conflict and changing. So you can get swept up in the change, and that can feel overwhelming. So if you can, like I said, don't plan anything too serious as we get to Saturday, the 25th. And then as we round out the week on Sunday's going to feel a little bit more dreamy, but we still have all the conflicts going on. But as that Venus energy starts, moving forward, which it moves pretty quickly. It's having a conversation with that Neptune in Aries. Now, this could be a woman in politics that is working with the Pope, for instance, and they are trying to, move their message of peace forward in some way. We also see Venus starting to, speak in harmony with Pluto. So again, there are women and groups of women who are coming together for a cause and to start maybe changing all of this energy that's highly volatile and very full of conflict. And we still see Mercury in that battle with Jupiter in Cancer, which Jupiter's trying to pick up, moving faster now, as it's ready to finish its time, even though it loves it here. But there's new lessons to be learned. What lessons that speak out or speak to us with the sun, with the North Node and the South Node, will feel pretty faded right now. So there are good lessons, right? It doesn't have to be bad, but if the North Node is where we're meant to grow into, and the South Node is what we already know or what we're moving away from, then the sun helps us understand both more clearly because it shines a light on the past and it shines a light on the future in a way that's harmonious. So even though the sun is in conflict with Pluto, fate is saying out of this conflict, out of this chaos, out of this discomfort that we're feeling right now, is a new way forward. And you just have to have faith and trust the process that all of this chaos happening right now is happening for a reason, because we can't keep doing things the same way we've been doing them. We're digging a hole that is about to collapse in on us if we just keep digging deeper and deeper without slowing down and shoring up the walls. And that's what Saturn's trying to get us to do at this time as well. So even though there's not huge events like a full moon or a new moon, we have a lot of shifting and changing energy as we move throughout this week. And then fate kind of sits on us and says, all right, can you take a step back? Can you disengage for a moment and take a look at the bigger picture? Because there's much more going on here than you realize. And that's what next week is going to show us. Because next week we are going to head into, as usual, a powerful full moon in the sign of Scorpio. And so, of course, that full moon event is one that is transformational and can suddenly change everything when that occurs. And it also takes the plans that you've had in motion for the last 6 months when we had that new moon in Scorpio and brings them to fullness, bring them to completion at this time. So if you want, again, to get a little preview on that energy and what it might mean for you, go read the article. Of course, next week I'll record the video and give you a little tidbit on what you might expect based on your rising sign specifically. And it's the rising sign that shows up in our day-to-day life. The sun sign is our ego's experience, which not everybody around us sees, but everybody around us sees what happens to us through the lens of that rising sign as well. So it's more notable, where only maybe your close friends and family know what's going on in your life from that sun perspective. And your emotional self depends on how your moon is, whether people around you know what you're experiencing or not. But a moon in Scorpio is what we call it fall. It doesn't love the dark energy here. It prefers things to be light and fun and safe and secure. And there's nothing safe and secure about Scorpio energy. Trust me, I live in the desert. The scorpions are nasty little friends. All right. So that is the week ahead. Let me know if you have any questions or comments, and then get ready to start looking at the June material, because I'll start working on that this week so that we can just keep planning ahead till we get to the big changes in July. And this year just keeps on going. That's what a fire horse year is for, after all. All right, guys. Thanks again for tuning in. Thanks for sharing my work, liking, commenting. A few more people might learn something new this week and might be able to help them out. That would be because of people like you that share my work. And I appreciate it. All right. Have an amazing week, and we will talk again next week. Take care, everybody.